2 years ago, comedian Sarah Silverman said some voters needed to call their grandparents to urge them to vote for Barack Obama.
If Barack Obama doesn't become the next president of the United States, I'm going to blame the Jews. I am. And I know you're saying like, oh my God, Sarah, I can't believe you're saying this. Jews are the most liberal, scrappy, civil rightsy people there are. Yes, that's true. But you're forgetting a whole large group of Jews that are not that way. And
that November, 78% of American Jewish voters cast ballots for the first black president. But the remaining 22% is an important group to consider. Did they vote for an independent candidate or Republican John McCain? Either way, the idea of a Jewish vote may not accurately measure how the religious group leans politically. Identifying Jews as one group could be the inherent problem. There are more than 5 million Jews living in the United States. Yet, as there are in most religions, there are multiple Jewish denominations. On the left is the Reform movement, the biggest one. Most of them are liberal and think progressively. Actor Ben Stiller is a Reform Jew. In the middle is the conservative movement that adheres to a more centrist point of view. On the right is the Orthodox, who promote Jewish principles in their most traditional sense. On the far right are the Hasidic Jews, who have ultra-conservative outlooks. Then, of course, are the Jews who don't participate in religion. While the so-called American Jews overwhelmingly voted for Obama, only a little more than half approve of his policy toward Israel. In the 5th month of his presidency, Obama reached out to the Muslim world in a speech in Cairo, Egypt. That same month, he insisted the Israeli government free settlement construction in the West Bank. Now, heading into the second half of his presidential term, Obama hasn't visited Israel as commander-in-chief. Instead, he has sent a number of colleagues there, including Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, Middle East envoy George Mitchell, and even Vice President Joe Biden. Little progress, if any, has come out of these diplomatic meetings. In March, Biden visited Israel to meet with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in an effort to restart peace talks with the Palestinian leaders. But during Biden's trip, the Israeli Interior Minister announced the construction of 1,600 new homes in East Jerusalem, where mostly Arabs live, a portion of the city meant to be the capital of a future Palestinian state. Biden said the news of the housing plan undermined the trust each party needed to proceed. But trust isn't the only thing that's slowing down the process. Cooperation is also key, and is less likely among the Israeli, Palestinian, and American leaders when at least one of the three parties are not ideologically aligned with the other two. Take Netanyahu, for example. He is a member of the Likud party, which lies on the far right of the political spectrum. Meanwhile, Obama and Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas are more liberal in their approaches. If a member of the Labor or Kadima parties in Israel were in charge, the chances of cooperation could be much greater because he or she believes in forward-thinking policies too. Another missing piece to this intractable puzzle are Republican elected officials. For decades, Israelis have favored Republican presidents and those in Congress. Republicans have consistently been more sympathetic to Israel than have Democrats. Many Israeli Jews prefer Republicans as a result. But why have American Jewish voters been more loyal to Democrats in U.S. elections if Republicans are more pro-Israel? In 2000, about 49% of American Jews called themselves liberal or very liberal. By 2008, that percentage dropped by a few points. The American Jewish Committee poll then found 30% identified themselves as moderate and 22% as conservative. So a good chunk are pretty liberal, but what must be evaluated is the religiosity of these Jews. About half of American Jews say they connect to Judaism ethnically, which means they associate more with their culture than with religion. More importantly, and even more startling to some, 90% of American Jews who aren't Orthodox have been moving toward less engagement with Israel. That strong majority is the part of the Jewish base that backs the Democrats. Then there are the fewer Jews, many of whom are Orthodox, who stand by Israel along with the Republicans. Some Jews who are registered Democrats may be less attached to Israel, but polls have found their liberal ideology fuels their views on domestic political issues, which to them matters a bit more than foreign policy. This religious and political divide between the more Reform Democratic Jews and the more Orthodox Republican Jews makes it difficult to judge U.S. election outcomes and trends. In 2004, Peter Beinart wrote about the end of the Jewish vote in the Washington Post. He argued there is no such thing as a Christian vote. He added that religious denominations began to matter less and less in the 1970s, and religious intensity to matter more and more. With little evidence available that could show how different Jewish Americans voted in the 2010 elections, it's hard to determine which political parties they supported. It's possible the ratio between the religious and non-religious Jews to the Democrat and Republican parties, respectively, may have undergone a small change, if any. However, the Tea Party and Republican Party must not be overlooked from that election. In the days after winning the Senate race in Florida, Tea Party candidate Marco Rubio went on a personal trip to Israel. That same week, Netanyahu toured the U.S. to meet with a number of newly elected politicians. He called on Obama to harden his policy toward Iran. He met with Secretary of State Clinton and with two soon-to-be powerful Republicans in the House of Representatives, Eric Cantor of Virginia, the incoming majority leader of the House, and John Boehner of Ohio, the next Speaker of the House. Just a week into December, Obama is juggling a number of priorities to check off before the holiday recess. He's rallying members of Congress to vote yes on his proposed tax deal. He sent envoy George Mitchell back to Israel only a few days after dropping the demands for a settlement freeze. Obama and Clinton said they believed abandoning that approach was the wisest choice, and the only realistic next step is to hit the refresh button for direct talks. The last time when movement has come out of direct talks was in 1993 for the signing of the Oslo Accords. President Bill Clinton mediated the agreement between Israeli Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin and Palestinian leader Yasser Arafat. The historical step forward handed over political authority to the Palestinians, who could then self-govern in the Gaza Strip and parts of the West Bank. President George W. Bush helped produce the roadmap that outlined a path working toward a two-state solution, but nothing tangible was felt beyond the rhetoric. Obama has veered away from the more standard American policy toward Israel. He has preserved the U.S. commitment to Israel's security, but he has also extended a longer and more present hand to the Palestinians. It's unclear if Obama's more flexible strategy in the Middle East will guarantee him more Jewish votes or fewer in his run for re-election in 2012. And with a more liberal Jewish base to garner, Republicans may not win over the religious group, even with their upcoming control of the House. Their one appealing party platform to some Jews, their commitment to Israel, is all they've got going for them. What may help analysts who interpret elections and politicians who run in them is a reconfiguration of the once seemingly cohesive Jewish base. Regardless, the presence or absence of religion affects these voters' decisions.